Hello again, and thank you for joining me on another episode of In the Trenches. I'm so stoked for y'all to listen in on this conversation with our next guest. He is a music video director turned commercial director. For those of you who know, that is not an easy task. His wisdom is plentiful. So without any further ado, Jeff Venable. All right. Thank you, Jeff, for joining us today.
Yeah, man.
How you
of course.
been?
Good. You know.
You've been busy out there?
Yeah, it's been good. It's been starting the year off always has like a, it's funny to hear people say like, yeah, it's usually typically slow in the season, and it's sometimes follows that path, but
Sure.
Yeah.
I find that new year for me as a creative, the slow period going into like December and such, I'm figuring out my new kick, my new fads that I'm going to be into. I don't like to carry in from one year to the next the same old that I get into. Do you have different fads or kicks that you get into with your creative moving into a new year?
You mean like as far as like something I would want to like pursue
within your craft? Is it more like I just want to get more handheld. I want to be more, I want my work to be more visual.
Yeah.
Different crews.
I if there's like a piece of, with any project, someone taught me this like years ago, and I still try to do it with everyone. I try to find one thing per project to be like really excited about, even if it's like a commercial for bread,
Sure.
If you're like, yeah, but I get to use this new arm that I've wanted to try for a while, or like, like I'm working with this DP, or I'm working with this VFX artist. Like I'm always, I guess my answer to that would be like, I'm always trying to find like the one thing per project to be kind of stoked about. Yeah. And then, and you can find other things too, but that's the only like rhythm I guess I would follow in that. I can look broadly too and say like, I probably need to find ways to incorporate a bit more, and we'll say like VFX into stuff. And then I'll look for opportunities for that. But that's kind of how I follow the like little,
the landscape
of whatever we do.
Well, I'm honestly flattered and excited to have you here because, like I said before you got in, I really do. I look at your career trajectory from what I can see from the outside, and from what I know, it does seem like we have a similar path. And what I mean by that is like we kind of came up through production companies, and at production companies you would be a director there, and you'd have your rep and you'd have your executive producer, and work would filter in and get to you, and you would be the kid in the room. You would stay the kid in the room playing with your creative mind and stuff like that. And nowadays I have a lot of guests that come on and that are learning from YouTube and learning the content side of things. They're coming in fresh off of a bit of a DIY
school, or like
do-it-yourself approach, where I feel like you and I've come up through a craft work approach. You have your line items, your crew people that you heavily rely on. You communicate to get your vision through the across the finish line.
Kind of both. Like I think I actually did grow up like when I was 11 or 12, running around with a camera, making like camp videos for friends or BMX videos and cutting them to Switchfoot songs and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like doing that. So one of the hardest things about, becoming a person that needs to speak into a bunch of, different sections of crew or different like departments is like saying, okay, I used to do all of this myself, and that's a thing, that's a common thing of like someone just kind of starting out. And this is how I did it too. Of like, I started out doing it all myself. I would light things, myself. I bought like one of those big ass, 90-pound 5-piece Airy kits and would like lug it through airports and stuff. And it had a broken wheel, so I would have to like lean it up with my wrist and pull it through airports myself. And like, where I've loaded in my old Subaru, and lighting things, editing since I was a kid, vague VFX, you know, have like loved people and like, you know, run boom poles and stuff. So I knew how to do all those things in kind of like a base format. And I think that's what like a good director knows how to like speak into.
Absolutely.
Is like then translating that into like, all right, I'm not doing that, but then I have to, it's like writing a treatment.
I have to communicate.
I have to say what's in here. And if I can't do that, then it's just in there and it doesn't matter how good you are at it. It's like you're either going to burn out or no one's going to know what you want.
That's
because
exactly
you can't
it.
like
That's
communicate.
exactly it.
Kind of like I did grow up and I did have, you know, I was at a production company. My first one that I was repped at was probably, I want to say like 12 years ago, 10, what year is it? It's 2024. Yeah. So like, I'd say, yeah, like about 12 years ago I was at a place and, yeah, but it was kind of both. Like I grew up doing it all and like would save my money during summers to buy like, you know, kids buy like speakers for their car and stuff like that and video games and stuff. And I would buy like a Sony PD-170 mini DV camera.
Wow.
Or, you know, and like shoot weddings.
Oh, so you came up before film.
Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah,
See, when I came in, it was, I remember stealing film from the cinematography classes at my college to go shoot short ends. And I would actually get enough short ends and go make a music video. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, I'd say or after film. So like the first time I shot film was in college.
Okay.
But like I would shoot, growing up it was like mini DV, high 8. It was like high 8 mini DV. In my high school program it was VHS and SVHS.
Wow.
So I did learn how to edit on those tape to tape like things where you have to like, you know, a cut point is a mere suggestion to these things of like it's not frame accurate and like then if you didn't lay your music down right on the thing or hit like go at a certain time, your whole edit
Analog
was
was a son of a gun, man.
Analog, yeah.
So when was it that the light bulb went off for you? Was there something that as a child that was like, you know, where other kids are buying baseball cards and, you know, cool stuff for their bikes and stuff?
Yeah.
What was it? What made the light bulb go off to be a director?
I don't know. Like, I think, well, I say I don't know. I guess when I started making videos for this like summer camp called Imprint, and it was like youth groups would come in and like work on a house for a week and they would, you know, do a whole summer camp. And then I would cut it to like a song to like make people feel something emotionally. And I was like 12, you know? So I think the first time I saw someone like cry from a video that I made, I was like, oh, kind of like that. And like, I don't know, some weird like Tennessee, Kentucky, deep blue collar work ethic in me was like, I want to start like, I like working. Like I like doing this. I like being productive. I like feeling valuable in that way. Enneagram 3, you know, success oriented type of guy. So like even from a young kid. So I think I found like value in that from like a young age. And then I liked doing it. And so that was kind of the light bulb. It was kind of like, oh, and then I became like the class project guy. And like, you know, we wouldn't put one lick of Spanish in a Spanish class video, but we'd still get like 120 out of 100 because we made like a funny rap video, you know? And so like, it was all, I guess that's when it clicked, is that I knew like, I like doing this and I wasn't like a traditionally like popular kid, but I was like a liked kid, but that was a way in for me also with like friends of being like, I wasn't going to be the like captain of any, you know, sports team or anything like that, but I could be really known and good for that thing. So I guess that's where I found my life.
Was there a filmmaker that as you started to get into movies, I'm sure it was like, you know, when you're a kid, once you start to figure out that there is a craft to making these things you're seeing on TV, was there a director? Was there a movie? What, you know?
I guess it was I mean, the easy answer and the one that was actually true is Spielberg, because it was, you know, all of my favorite like childhood movies were that. It's like, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and you know, I loved Minority Report, and like all, you know, even like Catch Me If You Can, like, you know, some of these that were just like, they had kind of like a bubble to them. I always found too that I was never drawn too much towards the like the too dark or brooding like type of stuff, like just because I felt like I didn't really. That's not really my vibe, and so like, you know, like, and so I
or it's
you know,
more mine.
or it's like I'm destined to coach girls soccer at some point in my life, you know what I mean, like, and I'm well on that path, like that's my that kind of feels like the aura of it. So I was always drawn to Spielberg, I guess, a long way of saying it.
So like when had to be music too, right?
Yeah,
because I mean, music, you grew up close to Nashville, you know, in and around Tennessee, and you know, you had the pulse of music pretty much at your doorstep. Did that shape or influence you to kind of that mixed with your early filmmaking needs? Is that how you got into music videos?
I think because you see, even if it's subliminal, like, I wouldn't call Nashville necessarily like an industry town. Like, it's kind of in a little bit of a sense. And like, I grew up in Williamson County, so like Franklin Brentwood area. Okay. Like on the line of Franklin and Brentwood, like right there. Directly. And I guess I just had friends whose like parents who were in music, and it was kind of like, oh, that's really cool. Like, even if they were like, you know, fill in the blank, like not like a glitzy music job. If it was like, you know, something more officey, it was still like really cool because, you know, they worked in that. And I think it was so, I don't know when it was, but I never really thought of it as like a career or a job, as like up until like maybe even like late high school or college, because I was like, oh, well, that seems like this is too fun for it to be. Oh, okay. To get paid for it, like, and who's going to pay for it? And then I guess I had this realization of someone has to make these music videos. Yeah. Someone has to make these commercials and movies and TV. Like, oh, like, I guess this is kind of like how people get into it.
I had that same realization when I went to, I was training to be a Navy SEAL.
No.
That was my end all. And my father was the one who's like, look, go take some classes at college so you can get a higher rank or whatever when you enlist and do it. I mean, I was running 14.
How old were you?
16 years old, 17, you know, running 15 miles in sand with a 40 pounds on my back. You know, and then when I took this...
we should go do that.
Yeah.
Right after this.
I run every day.
Like, hey, there you go. Yeah.
I can't run 14 miles, but...
with a 40-pound vest.
With a 40-pound vest.
Oh, my God.
But I literally took the easiest course. I just signed up for a bunch of film courses. Yeah. At the community college. And it was done. With a hook in my mouth. Yeah. Grabbed me. You know, so
it wasn't a Navy SEAL being like, maybe you should... take photos or direct videos.
No, it was just, it was honestly, it was a critical theory of like how things are getting made. Yeah. It was that same thing you said, like, oh, I mean, I guess there is jobs to make these for some, I mean, they're not just coming out of thin air.
Yeah. Cause it's too abstract. Like you see something and you're like, oh, that's just a show. Like they make that in, even if it is like they make that in Hollywood, you know, and I say just like Hollywood as
absolutely,
like a, you know,
well, that's where I moved. I mean,
exactly.
I literally,
you know,
like, I might have been like less than a year later, I up and left with no money and was homeless in LA. Yeah, moved to Hollywood. Go. Yeah, this is where it's gonna be. And, I mean, it did work out for me, but you know, that was part of my ignorance. But ignorance is bliss, and you just kind of blindly go through it. You know, I mean.
The one in the creative journey of like, no one knows exactly what they're doing when they're that age too. So it's like even just life experience. Like I went to college. I went to Western Kentucky, great school. But you know, I
film classes there at all?
Broadcast. Okay. So like I got a broadcast degree. And now they have a film program. Okay. But like I was doing work that was like adjacent to like lots of E&Gs and lots of like, I worked for PBS there for a while. I worked at NPR for a while. Like, you know, so like adjacent stuff to what we're doing now. But I think it all serves like, I don't know, everyone's just kind of finding their like path along that way. And like, it's LA for some, and it's like, you know, local access, Bowling Green, Kentucky, you know, channels for others. And
sure,
I don't know. That's but you wouldn't like know it by looking at either of our work, I guess. It's just kind of, I don't know, the creative base is like a funny thing. And it's like, I don't know if you think this too. I think it's all the time of like, just shoot as much as you can when you're young. Like that's what I did. It's like I shot so much and just like, or just experience as much as you can.
Experience
and like, especially if you're going to be a person who's leading the ship, like yourself, like then you know how to do it and talk to people about it, or like, you know, direct it.
Sure.
You know,
I mean, my comings up was a little bit different. I mean, I studied it. I studied music videos.
Yeah.
I got into film because I wanted to direct music videos.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to do. I could just, for a better part of almost 2 decades, I can tell you what director, what artist, and pretty much nail the video.
Yeah.
But that allowed me, I studied them. I could almost reverse engineer how they were done. You know?
Yeah.
So when the time came for me to step up to the plate, maybe it was a little bit of blind faith, or, you know, just a little bit of that confidence to get you over. I felt like I acted as if, you know what I mean? And worked my way through. So much of young directors, I think, you're trying to develop that style. And music videos are a wonderful platform to do that.
I don't know one better, because you get to do so many. The creativity is, it's so wide open.
Yeah, you're coming up with the idea most of the time. You're conducting the ins and outs of how you want to execute it, which is a little bit different in commercials.
Sure.
There's a little bit more of a committee going on in the commercial world, which is fine. There's a lot of money, a lot of people doing it. Would you say that, did you purposely curate the music video format to drive you into commercials? Was commercials and spot making always part of the plan? Meaning, for the longest time, and maybe even still now, I always wanted to do short form. Short form being, for our listeners, music videos and commercials. Yeah. I felt like that was my temperament. Yeah. My sensibility. I can get in, kill it, get out, go have a life real quick, do it again, switch gears, different hat, different feather. Absolutely. So when people ask me all the time, do you see yourself doing movies? Sure. At this point, that movie, that script needs to fall in my lap. Yeah. Because I've already been through the ups and the downs and the developments and the this and the he says and the she says and the papers and all that. No. Yeah. So I made a very conscious and deliberate effort to more or less stay in short form. Yeah. Photos, commercials, videos. Is that something maybe that was part of your plan? Oh, yeah. I mean, it was weird to kind of finally realize and turn that switch off and not feel like, in some filmmakery sense, like not as good for being like, I think I just like doing music videos and commercials and stuff. And I don't I'm not the director with 10 scripts in the drawer. Like I don't, and that's fun. And that's just my thing. It's like, it's not saying that zero. And that's not saying that the ones that do are in some sort of like worse or better path. It's just like, I don't think I'm into that as much. Exactly. And I think I found a lot of freedom in that. And like, I think one thing I found a lot of like creative longevity is something I think about a lot and not getting burned out and not forcing something that's like, all right, this is going to be a tough path. I'm just going to kind of like go this one, and not saying if it's something I want to get, the tough path is worth it. Sure. But if it's just something that's like tough for the sake of
what the mindset of like a filmmaker or a the working professional as that to, I don't know if this is making sense. Like, but the question of if it's like, if that's how I pursued it, yeah, I think it's kind of similar to yours. Is like
you had the intent to perfect, not necessarily perfect, but like figure you out in that space without trying to move ahead for the sake of moving ahead.
Yeah, I've always wanted to be really good at what I'm currently doing, while and like, you know, let's use the like scripts in the drawer director. It's kind of like, okay, well, these are fine, but I just want to serve all the purposes to get to the movie or the TV show. It's like, okay, that is okay, but I'm choosing to be really good at this for now, knowing in the season, and I'll like look up and see kind of like, all right, I'm headed this way. I need to kind of like shift this. So to the question of like, did I shape music videos to lead into commercial? I started to, once I kind of like looked up and I was like, all right, I'm seeing the budget shrink a little bit. I'm seeing, you know, my interest shift a little bit. I love music video. I wish I could still, you know, like I like if the industry afforded it to be a director safe place to make a
sustainable livable.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's, and that's not saying that that's not how it, like, it could be set up as that, but it would just, so much stuff would have to shift.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much shifting in the music industry anyways. Like, I like growing up here, it wasn't kind of the culture and in my blood of like music. And like, I found a lot of like, some of my favorite projects I've done have been music based, and like the people I get to work with and who you get to meet and experiences you get to have. And like, all of a sudden you look up and you're holding the camera in the middle of this like insane thing that you're in. It's like, that's fun. It's like, when else do you get to do that? Like, this has afforded us so many things. But I did see kind of my window closing there, and I was like, I think I'm going to go ahead and like branch from music and
to commercials.
It had to be a like just a, all right, jump off. Like, here we go. Like, and if it's not, it was actually an AD, I think, you know, Dwayne, or he's a director now. But at that time I knew him as an AD, and he's a very talented director too. He was like, he talked to me about, he knew some music video directors that did do commercials, but then they would, and it's just in Nashville, is this, I'm speaking of just in Nashville for this type of thing. But if they said yes to any other music videos coming back to it, then they hadn't made the jump yet. It was still like, you just have to like, this and be done. And it sucks because like, I loved the commissioners I was working with, and I loved the labels for the most part, and you know, the type of work, but it was just like, I think I have to like jump ship.
That's great that you say that, because that's perhaps one of the things I admire most about you, is that you did make that shift to directing full-time spots, commercials, and I failed to do that. I just somehow the transition didn't happen for me, and as you're saying, making that line in the sand, I don't think I did.
Well, I think you also had so much broader and deeper music.
Yeah,
like it was probably, it made more sense to kind of be more entrenched because you're entrenched. Hey,
but I did make an effort. To stay in music.
Yeah.
I had to. Just like you made the effort to move. At a certain point, I'm like, well, early on, commercials were so at the forefront of my mind that I was actually directing my videos to tantalize the agencies and those to say, wow, see, he's putting in that look that's really big for what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So I wasn't necessarily, and I see it all the time with directors past and present, when they try to make that shift into movies.
Films.
They're directing their music videos to showcase the next meeting, I guess you want to call it, and it's doing a disservice. It could be doing a disservice for the medium you're in, the music video, because oftentimes music videos are musical. Let's not forget that. And you try to get these, very intense film aesthetics into it. It just doesn't. The song and the visuals aren't lining up.
Yeah,
because you're trying to make it to something that it's not.
Well, I think you can watch we could both watch a music video or a commercial and be like, oh, they're forcing that one.
Trying a little hard.
And it's like, you can see it's not part of it's not serving the
it's not in the fabric of what you're being handed to add on to visually.
Yeah. And that I think I did start to do that a little bit of
I think we all do.
And it almost serves just your experience rather than wow, they shot a Dr. Dre Beats pill and put that in a music video.
Wow.
They're directing a national spot. Put them in the mix. They're up for it. I think I started seeing it's just how you get into music. Who makes those decisions to hire you? It's not just that you're gonna. It is having some experience of work, but it's once I learned that it was okay, even if someone sees a music video that I've done with all the best product placement in it, that's not the same as a commercial that they're going to hire me to do. Also, a spec spot that is 32 seconds long or 25 seconds long and not 30, agencies will know that's not a broadcast spot. Or if it's not a 15, or if it's, so there's so many little when they're looking to hire somebody, it's this. So how do you break into music? It's all right, find someone that needs some acoustic videos or some things to just get people singing on camera shot artfully.
Sure.
That will then lead to you get the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. I don't know how you did it. That's how I did it. It was and I had a really great mentor and advocate at a label who made those decisions that I sought after to, help me with that. And with commercial, I still run into this stuff. Still, a few years into commercial work and having done some good ones, it's you still get this here's the idea. We're looking for a car guy.
Oh yeah.
And I'm I've shot cars.
I've got it in here. You worried about being typecasted as a director?
Yeah. Dude, absolutely. So
we'll get to it.
There's so many, it's yes and no. I've shot cars. I've shot Mitsubishi. We both shot a Dodge campaign together, a Super Bowl thing.
With Chris Stapleton.
Yep. And a couple other car stuff, but I'm not the car guy. You know what I mean? So you wouldn't look at my reel and think well, if I shaped it as such and I only included those, I could be the car guy.
Well, that's one thing I noticed about your work is, and I asked, are you worried about being typecast as a director? Because what I see is well-executed comedy, and I just feel there is that sensibility about you, a fun-loving, fun guy. But then I see your car work, and then I was wondering, do you have a preference? Would you say visual versus comedy?
Mm-hmm.
Because comedy, I was told by an executive producer way long ago, a very successful one. I was he goes, what kind of commercials do you want to make? I'm I think comedy. He's well, get in line.
Yeah,
everybody and their brother. That's the first one that everybody says is the one that speaks, and and they were I don't really see that in any of your work, but we do see a visual style. I was ooh, do tell me.
Yeah.
They're why don't you go into the visual side of things, athletics and Under Armour and car work?
Yeah.
Does that play in somewhere in your mind, the back
sure.
of your head? this is too visual for comedy.
Well, we're branding ourselves all the time. Like,
Absolutely.
you know, like we have to, that's, you know, we're farmers to an extent. We work as much as the rain and the sun affords us to, you know.
That's a
like,
great analogy.
Truly, we, you know, we're also, it's like the tide going out for the tide. Like, if it's slow, it's just the tide pulling out, baby. It's coming back in. Like, you know, it's going to happen. Like, yes, I think that's where I started taking off. Is when I chose to not just be, I kind of I looked around at all my contemporaries and I was like, I just am not as drawn to the like, and this is it's just not where my knack was. I'm not as drawn towards the like 235 low con, really beautiful, cinematic, I'll say cinematic.
Sure.
Looking stuff. Like that's not my draw and not my angle and not what people could see. Cause like I grew up doing little funny, you know, like fake commercials and like that's all this like doing comedy growing up. Like I did improv for 5 years. So, like, you know, like I like that and I speak that. But I also kind of looked at it through like, especially my music video time, like through kind of a Pixar lens of like, Pixar is fun and funny and light and fun, but then also like you're gonna feel something. Hopefully,
you're gonna feel
like,
something with your work. I would say one thing I will say over all your work. You and I didn't get I forgot what I was gonna say, but with visual and comedy, I see two different. But over everything, I see an arc of storytelling, no matter what. Yeah. Even your very visual Titans. Monday Night Football. Those are awesome.
Yeah.
But they aren't visual for visual's sake.
Yeah.
They're visuals tied to a story.
Absolutely.
Always. Even if it's your moon pie fun commercial. You know, I love how the shaky cameras come in and you know, even just quick moves. It all is used to tell a story. But I do want I told you earlier, but our listeners to know that I hit you up many years ago, I think, when I was at home watching CMT and Chris Jansen's Take a Drunk Girl Home. Is that the
Drunk Girl?
Drunk Girl.
Which sounds different than the song or the video is.
And normally I'll get like, you know, 30 seconds in. And if I'm not hooked in 30, I'm off to ESPN or something. And I just kept watching. And then halfway through, my eyes were swelling up, and I mean, it was a beautiful, simply done. And I say simply because that takes discipline. It wasn't full of ooh la las. It was just a very well done story.
Oh, thanks, man. I love that one.
And you deserve what the praise you got from that. Didn't it win?
It won ACM Video of the Year.
As it should. Crazy. I haven't had an experience like that in a long time, and you got to vouch for me. I sent you a DM, and I didn't know you.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa! I felt compelled. Dude, you had, you know, us creators, we need to hear that.
Yeah.
But keep going back to what you're saying, where you're gonna feel something.
Yeah. Well, it's like man, it's like if Pixar hired, you know, director like that is what I'm drawn to as a tone the most. Like I studied, you know, I think my two favorite music videos that kind of were in that kind of, you know, storyteller, like let's tell kind of like a longer piece of a story. It's like Kelsey's Legends, and then
what was it? The nose thing.
This thing.
That was when that was the other video that got me.
Yeah.
He went to go get ice. I remember that.
Yeah.
And I got welled up.
Back. Yeah.
I'm sorry, forgot that. And then he's at yearbook. He's at the school prom, and he looks at his mom or something.
Yeah.
That was the other one that got me. You got me on two of your freaking videos.
I got to figure out one more. Get the trifecta.
Shit, I remember that.
Yeah.
God.
Those are, and what I studied was like how, okay, you watch Up, Pixar, and this is why I think this works so well for music video. You look at Up, and you look at how they told that story of Mr. Henderson and his wife in 3 minutes, and how they what shots they chose and what actions they chose to go very short. And like you're crying in Up when you see like they're walking up the hill and she stumbles and you're like, oh no. Or like, and you just see the outside of the room and you know what happened, like where she's like those things. I'm even getting goosebumps talking about it now because it's like the simplicity and the way that Pixar does that of like they show a shot or they show a look, like, or they show an object, like I remember in the Kelsey video, how do we show within like 5 cuts that they've gotten pregnant and had a baby and they're in love? It's like, okay, iPhone video of a pregnancy test, a shot of it's a boy balloon. He's rocking her and like he's rocking the baby up late at night and she's looking at him lovingly. 5. Like, and you've covered a year and a half of time right there. Like Pixar does that so well, and that's what I focus on. Like, I think they're uniquely brilliant at that. And I say they, like the directors and the artists that choose to make those shots up. So it's like, I think if you look at the 2 music videos that I like the most and that, have also given you tears, that have also given you, some feelings when you watch them, it's because they take that approach to how to tell it quickly and easily and deeply.
Now, do you think learning that came from spot making? It seems like that would be a direct result of having to tell in a commercial 26 seconds. You have 26 seconds usually because you have 4 seconds or more for the tag. So in 26 seconds, you really are speeding up your action to hit in a certain area. So you're not elongating your action because now you have to use that real estate in your edit. Yeah. Has that helped you? Do you think that helped you in situations like that?
Absolutely. Here, do you want to put this down? Sorry.
No, I'm fine. Yeah. Because I don't feel, I feel like my lack of commercials, lack of directing commercials, I don't have that skill as much. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, that just means your work is going to be tailored or aesthetically like that. Mine, I sometimes my problem is because I'm not cutting like that, I'm overshooting in my job. Yeah. And that could get into big problems.
The first commercial I ever shot was like this Franklin American Mortgage commercial, and it was kind of in this like, it's not docu, it's like kind of handheld lifestyle type of visual, and we didn't have boards, and I had a shot list which I thought was gonna help me in it, but then when we got into the edit, the editor was like, "Hey, this isn't. You can't shoot a commercial like this," because he's like, we have too much. And I was like, "What do you mean you have too much footage?" Like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you have too much great footage."
Isn't that a problem?
Yeah, and like, and it was like very low budget. It was like for a mortgage spot, it's and it was like, the commercial, and they get more and more and more. I say constrictive, but it can be in a good way, where you're like, we don't need that shot. It's not going to make it.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not.
So we're not going to shoot it. Like, like, let's not spend the time or the money to like. I think in commercials too, there's so much money on the line in such a short amount of time that you have to know. Talk about being able to having to communicate what you need and what you want quickly and efficiently. Like that's where it really,
for sure,
rubber meets the road. And yes, I'm starting to kind of lean more into like, and I've done a TV show like with ESPN, like, so like I'm starting to lean more into longer form narrative, and like I do have a script now with some people. It's like a comedy movie, but it's not only serving that purpose. It's like the commercial stuff that I'm doing now, I think is gonna serve me later. It's like how weddings served music videos, and music videos serve commercials, and commercials serve, longer form stuff. Like, I think it's kind of all following that path.
Yeah. Do you, so in one thing is let's move out of creative for a second. Let's talk business. In the music, I in my career, where it has taken me to now, it was, the handwriting was on the wall for me to leave all production companies
Yeah.
and start my own.
Sure.
Why, you say? Well, it's easy. Because 15% of the markup was going elsewhere.
Yeah.
I wasn't in any control of the money, meaning how much I was making, how much crew would get. So starting a production company, though stressful, and signing checks while you're yelling action defeats why we got into it. But my point is, has that been something that you have jumped into or not? Because the commercial world landscape is much different than, say, the music video world. So I would agree that it would be much easier to have a production company and be doing high-end music videos and such versus doing commercials.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get into that for a minute, because I think business. I mean, are you very business minded? Is that something you love to get into?
Yeah.
Are you looking at numbers?
I took the approach just how I'm like, all right, I'm not going to do this creatively. I'm just going to kind of be pitched for this. Like, I'm going to narrow myself. Okay. So I was like, sharp sword cuts quicker, so I've chosen to not. I sold all my equipment. I don't own a camera. I own my phone. And, like, I don't own a camera. I don't own lights. I don't know. Like, I have a laptop that I'll edit on sometimes if need be. But I'm like, I only want to do the thing that I think is going to carry me the furthest. And it's that. And that's not saying that, like, eventually I wouldn't start, like, a small production company to, like, to be more flexible. But I think as of now, I've chosen to, like, not take up my brain space with that and to do it with other stuff. Like, if it's gonna, because even with, like, margins things like that, is
the only real reason. It gives you, it increases your margin when, nowadays you're getting potentially less work.
Yeah, sure.
And less budgets.
Yep.
So to offset those two, call them negatives, you form your production company to take away those negatives and put that back into your wallet and keep it moving.
And I would say, gosh, and this is just the way my brain thinks. Even if I were to be more in the music space and to be doing that more, like, I would just look at it and be like, is the juice worth the squeeze on that? Like, am I signing the checks and carrying the responsibility and the insurance and the, like, okay, well, I've got to, like, split my brain. Then, like, is that going to be worth it for me to make the margin? Or is it going to, creative longevity, burn me out? And I'm going to, like, am I going to want it? Like, so my answer to that is I've chosen to fly as low and clean and easy and soul member LLC as possible. And that's served me well, like, so far. But that's just the path that I chose. Like, that's how I got there on it. But I completely understand why it would be very advantageous for someone to be like, yeah, I don't want to give 15% of this budget to something that's just going to go to the person that's going to write the check, like to the accountant for the production company. Or I don't want to buy the Keurig cups for this, this post house. If I could just work with a sole editor, like, positive and negatives each. Some people want the post house. Some people want the support. Like, I kind of liked the support and then just, like, give me the check. Like, just like, I'm not on the hook for the liability.
Yeah.
Write the check.
I felt like I was getting squeezed out.
Yeah.
As a working director,
I
was getting squeezed out.
Of percentage or
percentage. I had to work more.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't getting enough work and or giving hell, half the time they would tell me, I have to take a pay cut because of X, Y, and Z. Is that
Yeah.
true or not? I don't
Yeah.
even know. I'm not in control of the numbers. After a while, that got a little frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, I asked that question because I do know I've lived in both worlds, commercials and music videos, and they are two different kinds of demands.
Yeah.
You have you would have to have, in a commercial production company, you'd have to have much more of an infrastructure set up than what I do, even as a music video company does, photo and video. Now, have you noticed anything with I say this with, I've only had one rep that I would run through a burning building for. His name is Tommy Labuda. I started with him. He started with me, and he is probably the biggest running director's rep still in the business, has everyone and such and such. And I've since left him, doing my own, but we're still good friends and everything like that. Reps, agents have almost, other than Tommy, never done shit for me.
Yeah, sure.
So how do you feel about agents?
Well, it's...
Meaning, we got our West Coast rep, we got our Northeast rep, we got our Mexico.
Yeah.
Unless you are the cash cow.
Yeah.
You're just, send us your new reel. Okay. And they don't even remember your name half the time.
For sure.
That's been my experience.
Yeah. Well,
I don't want to say for you.
No, it's the
because
same.
You've done a better job a great job at making that transition.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about it?
Well, but that's still, I think in the commercial world, it's the same thing. It's like when you get signed to a director's roster. What is it? I mean, you and I both know it's like, all right, you get signed to a director's roster at a production company. You're like, all right, better start working out for all this work that's going to come in. Like, I better see if I can increase my credit limit because I'm going to be rolling in cash.
Yes.
And it's like you're just there, a tool. The rep is a tool. They can be incredibly useful. They're necessary for the way that the industry is set up. Production companies are as well. They're a tool. These are all just tools for it. It's like, but you still have to. When I got signed to the first production company, I was like, all right, work, here we go. It's coming in. And the work I was getting was still through me talking to people,
hitting the streets,
just like knowing people, like networking. My wife is a incredible networker. She is much better at it than I am. She is more known in Nashville than I am by far.
She's probably prettier than you.
There's like not even a question about that. So like she's the, for years and years, like Allie's boyfriend. And she taught me, it's like, babe, you need to go take some meetings. I'm like, I don't like doing meetings. I just want to do the work. She's like, yeah, that's doing the work is doing meetings, like in meeting people. So yeah, reps and production companies are great. They're like I met probably 8 to 10 different production companies right now. Just to have irons in the fire, and like I have 2 or 3 reps.
So you're at many different companies.
Lots of different.
See, you're not exclusive anymore. Is that gone? I mean, I guess some people can be if they are like, working for Tool or MJZ
Caviar,
or
Anonymous.
We don't want to let that guy go. Sign him in.
It's I've seen, and I'd say music video and commercial is the same but different. Like I think what's working for me best now is being non-exclusive and not rely, because if I'm exclusive, I'm only getting to do the work that comes in through that door of the production company, and it better be good, or else you're just like, maybe you get, or like, then you're gonna have
to take it just to get the bills, and you're like, now you're doing boards that are not where it's going to take you. That's something I really want to talk about. Like, keep going.
Yeah. So I do have, when going back to the original, the question of like, how do they serve you? I think it's, their job is made better by still just as far as you're going, like you are still, if you're bringing in some work, and that's how I've made even some like inroads through production companies that I really wanted to be into. It's like a relationship that then, like, if I get a job that I get the freedom to take it to any production company, I'm like, hey, let's do this one together. Let's have a great experience together. And then I'm in, like, so like, and that's not any sort of like conniving way. And it's just like,
it's strategic.
It's like, yeah, it's just like, yeah, and we all work together great and we're having a good time. And I like working with you. You guys hopefully like working with me. Let's keep doing this. And so it's just the way in. That's how I feel like with reps and with production companies. It's like they will get you work, but you still have to like be on the radar. You still have to like be doing stuff. Of
course.
So yeah, that's how I've done it. And I've chosen to stay non-exclusive right now too.
How important is it for you to have a team, like a team that you can, like same DP, same color, same editor, or do you get inspiration through new DPs, new flavor that you're going to bring in? And I'm that way. I'll have like 3 different flavors that I'm kind of like, do I want to go this way with the feel, or do I want to go this way? And I'll bring in some of the key departments who really specialize in that. Yeah. Are you like that, or do you kind of use the same team every time because it's efficient and it's, you don't have to unspoken language gets you further versus having to communicate?
There's some stuff with both. There's a few DPs that I always go back to because, and this is how I feel like people choose directors too. It's like they're good, 1, so you got to be good, but then 2, I like the second hand of, like I don't have to re-explain like, hey, this doesn't have enough fill, and like they know what I mean by that. Like it's not like, or hey, they're just too dark. Like I don't like this line here. Like I kind of want to. Can we switch them up or angle this a little bit differently to where it feels a little more like natural on screen? And if you haven't had a lot of experience with someone, then you're kind of walking on eggshells like, hey, so this looks great, but I think is it a little flat on this side?
You don't want to hurt their feelings or something.
Yeah, and but I do have some regulars that I like to go to, but I'm half and half. Like I'd say I'm not like hard pressed to only work with those people. Okay. And if it's a tonal thing, if it's like, yeah, they're good at this, but like, I don't know if I would use this art director for this, like, then I'll always come back. I'll come back to them if I've had a good time, if I've had a good working relationship with them. But I don't know. No, I think I kind of like to keep it a little bit open, but still I have my go-tos.
Yeah, I love what you just said because it brings up something that I spend a lot of time on is tone. And to be very frank with you, it's something that nobody outside of musicians, because they spend all of their time talking about tone when they're in the studio creating, aren't they? Yeah. How is this going to sound? Do we want to run it through 2 amps? Are those gauges fine? Or do we want to gently hit it? Do we want to hard hit it? Do we want to clip it? Yeah. All tone. All so that resonates in a certain way to their listener to go, they're going to feel the way I want them to feel that song tonally. Yeah. And nobody, at least it talks about visual tone. Yeah. And how many artists that honestly, every artist I work for, we get into the weeds of tone. And they're like, dude, you're blowing my mind. I didn't know there was such, there is. I've learned that anything that an artist can say, it's a direct to visual. Yeah. Audio and visual is the same. I don't care if you're Elton John in the studio. He has a process, he has a thing, and I can correlate it to your process. Yeah. It might be different, but it's... And the day I realized that was like an eye-opening thing, because I'm like, whoa, wow, we're on the same plane. So visual tone is something that is insanely important. How about this? The very first thing I think of when I direct is this photographic? Or is this cinematic? For me, that defines 2 different things. Am I going to go spherical? Am I going to go anamorphic or just a little bit more squeeze on the aspect? Am I going to go more dirty, over the shoulder, more cinema? Versus photo where you're not going through foreground as much, or you're I can't. And the other thing about visual tone is so often directors don't maintain visual tone in the project. Their tone is everywhere. They've gotten their visual tone askewed, whether they're getting pressured on time or they didn't have something to execute and they still go with that anyway. Well, that's where they get lost in the edit, or that's where we get lost viewing. You're like, I'm confused.
Yeah.
How important is visual tone with you?
I mean, I think as the years go on, I think more and more about it. As far as like, it doesn't need that. You know, like exactly. I think that's what I don't know if this is like that for you, of like, even if it's a piece of gear or like people overusing anamorphics. It's like, hey, this yogurt spot does not need an anamorphic lens.
Yeah, this
it's like
dollop of Daisy sour cream.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't need the Abrams flares from the flashlights.
Yeah, exactly. Like what? And I think everyone can appreciate that more if you're like, hey, it does. Yeah. What do we need to do this thing? Yeah. And going back to like, even if it's just something as simple as like telling the story for an artist or a product or selling a certain thing, it's like, what am I gonna do to get it there the best? It's like, is this a soft approach? Does this all need to be real crisp and sharp? Does this need to be loud? Does this need to be muted? Does it need to, so yeah, I think
all of that. I think how much light, how little light? Is it natural light? Are we gonna romance it? Are we gonna am I gonna flex with my DP and really show some edges and some negative and a split 3/4 of this with this mixed color temperature? Yeah. I'm in this. Yeah. You feel me?
Yeah.
Versus just, laying back and not being so, filmmaker present.
Yeah. I think that's where, the art side of it comes out too, is like, all right, so, me and you and 5 other directors might make different choices on a same song or a same product or a same commercial. It's like, well, I mean, you could look at all of them and they all serve a purpose and they all, do a good job at telling it. But like, I don't know, like, but you could also have like a very like, it would be like a Spidey flavored, spot, or like a Jeff flavored spot, which sounds gross. Like just it sounds like, I do think about tone in that way. And some directors, it's very obvious that this is their spot. You can kind of tell when you see it. And like, I think there's some stuff like that of mine that you can, but I don't know. I try to kind of like, ride the tone on like, be versatile, I guess, more than just like, it has to be this.
Do you think it's important for your work to have a specific style?
I think.
And does it in your mind?
I think commercial is funny because I think you get hired for a specific style, but it's hard to inject it sometimes. Like, because, sometimes it can be formulaic and sometimes you get a lot of freedom in it. So like, I do think if you were to look at like a big broad stroke of my work, then like, I do think that you could be like, this feels like you, like I do feel like it does have a certain like bounce to it, a certain kind of like live, like earnestness to it, I guess. And not super hard edged, not too aggressive.
It lives in reality. It lives, it's attainable.
Yeah. So I think that's where I'd say, yes, you can see that in some of the commercial work, but some of it is just like, hey, when you shoot the boards and shoot them exactly how they're done. So like, but I think that's why I would get chosen for certain ones, is because of the breadth of tone that I've done. So like in commercial, they really are very specific about that. So like, if it's like a young director, like, I guess like, I'm glad that I chose to be very mindful about what I'm being presented by. Like, I did a lot of work for this company called Storybrand, through this writer and business coach, Don Miller. And he's awesome. And so I shot so much with him. And one of their big things was something passing the grunt test, or like, if someone could caveman pitch what you do. And what their big thing was, businesses communicating what they do quickly, simply, and not complicated. Okay. So I did that over and over and over and over and over. So then when people would think of me, I was like, humor and heartstring.
Okay.
That's what, like, if you could pitch me into things like humor and heartstring, like, that's what I want to be known as. And the grunt test would be like, if a caveman could go up to your work and just be like, bruh, 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 and just in those short amount of things, be able to describe your style or tone, like what you do. Because that's all you get from executives and people who are making the money decisions is a quick, like, what does he do? Oh, he does this. Okay, yeah. So click, what's on their website? Okay, they look kind of like this. Like, really, it's so fast.
Dude, it's
so quick.
I believe, and I have this running thing because I was told this.
Yeah.
If you are a director up for a commercial, and in the boards is a girl with a cute little dress, running on a cobblestone street with a red balloon, and you're like, I've got this job in the bank.
Can
you queue up, build that edit, give me that edit with the girl on the cobblestone street? Yeah, I know it's got the green balloon, but put it in there.
Yeah.
No, you didn't get it. Why? It wasn't a red balloon.
Yeah.
It's that they want to see what
you do.
And what they want.
Yes.
So I never had the red balloon.
Yeah.
Do you feel like at times, because story and humor and emotion is so important, that the byproduct as a director in commercials is oftentimes because they have the creative, that you are being hired as more of a technician? Does that sometimes get into your brain when you're working to be like, okay, don't inject too much of this crazy story brain. Okay, just do what they need. Is that?
Yeah.
For the few that I've done, that's kind of where I wasn't getting the boards that weren't fitting probably what I would do great at. So therefore I was being hired as a visual technician to execute. And so it wasn't kind of...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I kind of look at a year and I say, all right, and some people might hear this and they might think that this is pessimistic, but I think it's also like creative longevity again.
Okay.
And if I have like 2 or 3 projects a year that I'm like, I love this one. Like, this is a really good one. And it's a good representative.
This is for the real.
It's for me. Yeah. And it's like, and it could, and it like, so then I think that that's a great year. Okay. So then sometimes there's a project where, you're going to it, and especially on commercial, where they really get to be like, no, we're not doing that. Sorry. We don't get to, there are no dancing pandas in this video. I'm so sorry.
We can't get the snorkel lens and go right through?
Yeah, exactly. So they're like, we don't need that.
We don't need that.
This is diapers. Like, we don't need a snorkel lens for diapers. Maybe, I don't know. That'd be okay. Well, hey, here we are. I think there's times where you just look at it and you're like, great. Okay, cool. And I think that has served me well too, of being like, oh yeah, like, I think the more I do it too is I'll make a strong suggestion, and I'll, like, even if I go to Video Village, you probably saw it on RAM too. I come up and be like, hey, here's the realities of some stuff. We only have time for this. I know we had this boarded. I want to do this. Here's what I think we should do. You guys get to make the call, of course. It's your project. But here's my strong suggestion. Versus like, we have to get this shot. And then if they say no, and I say yes, they're going to win.
Absolutely.
So you're not going to win. So I'll make a strong suggestion in a like collaborative, collaborative way. And English minor. Then if they don't take it, then at least I've like done my due diligence on like, I want this to be good for you guys. Like, I want you to have a good product at the end. And I think my suggestion will get it there. But if you say no, then okay, that's fine. Like,
that's a skill.
Yeah, it's a skill. It's a that's the business side of it. Of like you make it, you go up to Video Village, you chat, you are like, oh, Denise, great idea. Let's turn the cup a quarter degree so we can see that yellow line. Like, love
They're
that.
They're paying you.
Yeah.
If you need to sit there and decipher, there needs to be 12 Cheerios in the half-eaten Cheerio bowl.
Yeah.
I'll sit there for 5 hours and talk about why there should be 11.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's very kind of It's by committee. It's a lot of things. Now I even do that in my videos.
Yeah.
Even in my photo shoots. There isn't a scene that I do direct, move on from without making sure that Video Village is good for us to move.
Oh yeah, for sure. You have to.
And I think that is an experienced trait that must carry over if you want longevity.
Well, the people skill part of the job you can't underestimate. Like I remember I was working with a very prominent country artist a few years ago, like back when I was kind of like first starting off, and we shot a take of him performing, and then the song ended. Is like, okay, great job. And then I went off to go do something else, and my mentor and commissioner came up and was like, "Hey, see so and so standing there after the take, like by himself?" And I was like, "Yeah, the artist." He's like, "You need to go, like, talk to him about it and make sure that he's feeling good and do some groundwork there and like be good. If you get the vibe that they're not wanting to talk, then back off. But like, go and make sure they're feeling good. Like, so with commercial, with actors, with client, with people, it's like half the time you're reading the room of like, what needs to be done here? Where do I need, like, where's some steam blowing out that I need to adjust? Where do I need to like back off? Where do we need to like, can I just be creative for a while, or do I need to like think client to get us a little further? Like, what's going to get us down the river?
My head is always on a swivel.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people have said that I give enough on everybody there. I give enough rope. Go.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah.
Pull it back. Go.
Yeah.
Pull it back. That's kind of, I'm looking at everybody from the PAs to the top. To the grips, to how we're doing it, because that's all time. It's all, you're going to be asked. Everything matters.
Well, and if people feel like, I think you hire people to be good creatives on set. So like art department, sound, lighting, like anything, like camera department, like anything. Like people want to be really good at their job, and so I think if you even just check in occasionally and like, or if you know that was a really difficult pull on focus. And I'll just use like one of my favorites, Josh Boyd, as an example. Like, Boyd, nailed that. Yeah. Like, sharp, that was good. Like, just so people get little like, I'm watching
boosts.
I'm watching, but also like good, and are like, hey, this next one, make sure when he comes around that corner, we're reading that he's gonna come a little closer, so we hit that focus. So it's like,
and incentivize your crew too.
Yeah, to
be the best, because they don't want to sit there and just be technical,
be dictatored.
I think snap.
I think you and we did that. It's like I never, like, I'm this exact way on a set, like, and unless we're behind.
You're pretty mellow
like,
on that.
People trickle down theory of like what's happening towards the top, and if you're directing or if you're producing. And I also don't like working with like overly stressed out producers, because like I'm like, hey, like, let's cool it down a little bit. Like, let's be cool. I like to keep that tone and that like creative atmosphere, even if we're shooting something very small and silly. It's like, because then it's like, say then you're working with the same crew on one that's a little more stressful. They know you've got their back, and it's just like, just be good to work with. Yeah. Like, like
you are remembered. Like, I was told by, Scott Cunningham is an amazing DP. But he was one of my best friends, Back when he was producing for me and Dave Meyers, he would say, look, you can go this whole job killing it. the second you have one outbreak or just lose your mind, they're going to remember that.
Oh, yeah.
Even though the job is great and the outcome is great, just remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, oh boy, that has stayed with me forever. For sure. I'm not saying I don't lose my mind. I mean, I do. Yeah. I'm a very passionate.
It's a very dad-like. It's a very dad-like thing, you know. You're like.
Well, that's a good segue. Right now, I do have something that I wanted to chat with you about because I don't think we can talk about our demands.
Yeah.
In our career and our work, especially with your wife working in the industry as well.
Yeah.
We both have two. You're a little bit younger than me in the kids department, but like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah.
The patience. I mean, I was just gone for 14 days and not too long ago, gone for 3 weeks on photo assignments.
Yeah.
I would love to talk about that because I don't get to talk about, being a dad and being a good dad, a present dad, a dad who teaches, and it's not just there, but we also have very heavy demands. We're like doctors on steroids half the time. At least the way I've aligned my work, artists call me at 10:30 at night. Yeah. Hey, can I get let's dive into that for a second because it's something that I try to be the greatest dad. I try, and it means everything. I will not end this career with regret. I won't. Mm-hmm. I would rather quit the career than have the regret.
Yeah.
So let that be known.
I think boundaries has been a good thing for me.
Teach me,
like,
please.
And not with like Daisy, and she's 2.5. Like, not now. Daddy's making an important cupcake decision. Okay, I cannot speak. Like, I think I'll look at an email or a text and like, I'm so sorry, producers that are watching this or collaborators, and I'll look at it and be like, is this a today decision or a later on decision? And if I can like great, it's in the hopper, I will get to it, then I'll put it off. Because or sometimes when something's hot and you need to take care of it.
Of course.
Like, you're like, if art is waiting on you to say red or green or purple, and you're like, and everyone is waiting on that, then you have then sometimes I will be like, hey, I need to go step out really quick.
Are you making creative conference calls while you're in student pickup line?
Yeah,
I've done a few of those where I'm on the phone and I see the kids coming. I'm like,
stop. Yeah, do not yell. I think I would say humbly, I'm still figuring that out.
Sure.
Like, because we're 2.5 years into it. We just have the one.
Okay.
And but I think I've done the self-employed thing for so long that it's helped me I only know how to manage my time with that. So I think too that I've had some runway of learning how to like turn off if I can. And I mean too, it's like you do look at what's important, and if you are rested and able to be present the next day, I don't know. I think I've just gotten better, like even with parenting, at like, and still figuring this out, like the gas and the brake, or gas and the brake. And it's like, let's use a Mario Kart example here.
Love to.
Let's get deep into some N64. The moment you figure out in Mario Kart that like, if you just hold down the gas the whole time, you're not going to be as fast, and like you won't set the course record if you're just like slamming into walls.
I really hope that our social team uses that clip with Mario people.
Yeah. Just awesome. With our faces on it. Just like, we're like, okay. But if you learn like, okay, there's a turn coming, I gotta brake and like turn around, like, and then gas. Like, I think a lot of creatives spend their life on like full gas, and if they're not full gas, and they feel like they're failing. And it's like, and I've been there too. It's like I have done this a lot too, but I think I'm learning that like you got to break sometimes, you got to then go, then let's hold off. Like, or if this decision feels like it's just going to burn you out and you're just going to it's going to end up in the same exact place. It's like, all right, break. It's not what I thought it wanted to be. Yeah. It's going to be okay. Like, let's give it this. And then like, where do I spend my gas? Like, and then like when you can really focus and hit it on those certain things, and that's where I like to pay attention to. So I'm not saying I do that perfectly. I still,
and you won't. You're
I'm just slamming into the walls all the time.
Yes.
But like but especially with like a little kiddo, it's like it's the most fun. I feel like I'm built for it. I love it. She's amazing. I couldn't imagine life like without it. I say it, parenthood, not it, child, she. Then her. Then I don't know. It all boundaries in the sense of like, I don't want to make this moment not present. Like I don't want to not be present in this. And that's what if I'm good at the gas and brake thing, the being present is still something I'm like, okay, I'm not going to answer my phone right now. Or like, I'm not going to scroll through something. And like, let's be here now. Like that's where I'm learning or hoping to make the most like growth in soon. This is where I feel like I'm like failing the most as a parent, like being present.
You got plenty of time to fix. Yeah. I just got back from Europe with an artist who you've worked with too. Yes. Jake Owen. Yeah. And I do a lot with him, and we are such good friends.
He's great.
And I bring this up because he had his father out there.
Yeah. He was awesome too.
And Steve. And what a warrior he's is. Great. But also like he's fought, battled, and won through cancer. They had a family scare, and this was an important trip that Jake wanted with his father. So he wanted me there specifically to shoot these kind of wall moments to have forever, And the takeaway was almost all for me. I learned from the two of them patience, the love and the support, and the just how up close and center his father is to him. Like they're living something that I would dream of having with my kids. And I was able to witness that. And coming home, I've been a changed person just by witnessing their relationship and how I'm applying it to my kids. Because I'm a workaholic. I believe I'm a better father and a husband when I'm working, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I kind of go into a self-destruct mode when I'm not working.
Sure.
So that's something that's very important to me, and I would suffice to say, I would think, from your work and your personality and the fact that you already have awareness of it, you're doing a good thing on that.
Thanks, Dad.
So another thing that I think would be fun to chat about. I went through this even in still go through it. Yeah. And I want to open up about it. Rates. In commercials specifically, my rate was ever changing.
Sure.
Some people can maintain a rate, raise a rate, lower a rate. How do you feel? Do you keep a same rate, or does it fluctuate from job to job, or does it fluctuate with you've done 5 jobs in a row? Yeah. You're looking good. Nah, I'm not going to cut my rate. I mean, how are you with that?
I'd say it's definitely ever changing. I mean, just this morning I was like, oh, I thought it was this. And they're like, well, it had to be this because this. And like, okay. Like, all right. And
Troy, I'm not the only one. Yeah.
So it's still, I mean, whenever you're working with, whenever you don't get the final say with the production company, like you can
let her rip. I think it's we all want to know, how do we gum about our rates?
Yeah, I think it's hard. I think because the budgets are so like, it just all depends. Like, I think that's the approach you have to take to it is like, some job doesn't warrant me to make the percentage on it. Some do. Some, if it's like, some jobs feel like, wow, I can't believe I got that for this. Or some jobs feel like, wow, I should have gotten paid 10 times this for that amount of effort that I put in.
Especially what I delivered.
Yes.
And what they're getting. I say that all the time with photos. I'm like, you know, they leave the session with 2 years worth of photos. Yeah. And I just shot myself 2 years worth of work.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, oh, I got to stop doing so good.
It's got to be, stop being so efficient, offering so many good values to people. I think with the rates, because it's kind of an ever-changing thing. It's like sometimes you work off a percentage. So like, you know, kind of industry standard for like under 200 or something like that is like, directors typically go like 10% of the budget, right? So like that's a pretty like common thing. But sometimes a production company's like, hey, we operate off 10% of A through K on the thing.
A through K.
And I'm like, okay, well that's, and sometimes, you know, if you have like 200 extras for something, then you're like, well, okay, yeah, I guess my percentage on the extras. But then you could also say like, well, I'm going to have to manage all those. You know, we're going to have to work with AD to manage.
Why don't you explain A through K? A through K is basically production.
A through K is like if you're on an A through like on a budget, it's the top line stuff. So it's like it doesn't include. Oh God, no, I'm not sure.
All the casting, all the talent, and Troy, you can get in there on that one. But yeah, I think it's A through K is not as desirable as you would want to be. Yeah, well, you want the full.
Yeah, so say we'll use 200 as an example. Sure. Say the budget is 200, and if you were going to get 10%, you'd get 20, which is great. Then you'd say, okay, well, then if it's A through K is only 150, then you say you get 15. So that's 5,000 right out the door just because of a decision based on that. But sometimes you think of it, and then sometimes you look at it overall. And I kind of like to get like, sometimes I like to be more in the weeds on a budget because like,
how much is the production company making? How much are we paying for this? How much are we paying for this? I don't need that hospital.
Yeah, I don't need the
first class flight or whatever.
It's like can we? So even when it comes to rates, like I've gotten less like. If I'm coming on a project, like I'm not gonna cut the rate just automatically. Like let's have a conversation about it. Yeah. But like,
why don't you hear how I want to execute this? Yeah. To maybe think like you just said, we don't need the 10-ton grip truck.
Yeah, exactly.
You may because again, reading a piece of paper. Yeah. You can see it all kinds of ways. Hell, my agent Tommy at some point was like, "This treatment's not going to work. It feels too comedy." I'm like, "You're seeing it as comedy. It's not." Yeah. Okay, you're right. Right. So there's a lot of discussion that needs to be had just from your own treatment.
Yes. Yeah. I think I will also look at it and be like, okay, well, if I'm gonna get like I stopped doing the like, I'll just work for free on this. Like it'll be good for I stopped doing that like a long time ago. Or like not even for free, but for pennies. I'm like we can't, because you can't make it's not good for anybody eventually. Like, because then it sets up the industry to be worse. And it's like even if you want to get a good product out of it, like I think there's times that I will look at a budget and be like, okay, if I need to cut this to get the really good steady op or this piece of equipment or like a beefier camera team or a beefier G&E or something like that, then yeah, for sure I'll make those concessions. But then also I also make sure to not be like, well, if I'm getting a good rate, I don't want the crew to be like working for, like, I also look at that. Like if I look at like, wait, the AC, like the camera team's getting this, like, but then like if I'm getting a full rate, like that's weird. So like, I'll say like, where can we just make sure that that we're delivering a team that is appropriately paid, including myself and including the producer, including the production company. Sure. for the amount of people that are there. So like, if we need to take one person out so then everyone can get paid fairly, then like I like to do that too. But then there's also times where you're like, it's just all flexible. His answer, it's like I think you just have to be flexible. I was hoping
you were going to say that because that's how it is with me. And if you said anything different, I'd be like, okay,
I'm gonna buckle down on these fools. I think you have to be, or else you. But you still have to look out for yourself, and I think that's the hard thing about not having like a manager or a rep that negotiates all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like, and that's what I would tell people. It's like, well, hey, the advantage of this is like you're not paying like if I'm talking to a production company, it's like you're not paying a rep fee right now, so like that's good for all of us. But the weird thing is that now I'm going to be discussing my rate with you. Mm-hmm. And like kind of pushing for more here. So it's like, I typically get this if it's on that. And I'll say that like, it's like, typically I get this on a job like this. And I was like, but I'm willing to play ball. Like I'll say that all the time. And that's really what I mean. It's like, to some extent, like if they're like, hey, we're only gonna pay you this, I'm like, well, I just can't do it.
Yeah.
Like,
because then you get known as, that guy.
Yeah.
You have to know your worth.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, do you feel? I mean, I'm big on that.
Yeah.
I don't want to come in soft and like, I want you to pull out your checkbook. Yeah. You're gonna get it too. Well, you're gonna get but
that's the thing.
I fluctuate all. Yeah. There isn't a job that I don't.
Yeah. It's like I'm always gonna be flexible. I always want to serve the bigger project for it. But
for sure.
Realistic. Like I think if you're having a realistic conversation with people. And this is how I approach it. It's like if I'm having a realistic conversation to the EP of the company, and they're like, "Hey, we have this in for you. What do you think?" And be like, "Well, I typically get this. Why is it this? Mm-hmm. Can you talk me through that?" And if it's just that, so they can, and their margin is full or whatever, and everything else hasn't been reduced, and it's like, then I will push back on it. But if it's like, if it really does need to be that, and I can see that in the numbers, then I'll be realistic about it. Like, of course, like, so I'm not going to like hamstring the whole project just so like,
make more money.
Yeah. But I also don't want other things to hamstring the project just so it can.
Absolutely.
So I don't know. That's kind of how I do it.
Do you see one of the topics I hear coming up all the time, and I'm so old school that I might be turning a blind eye to it. How do you feel about AI and what it's potentially could? Everybody's so doomsday about how it's going to, kill our careers, photo, video, all that stuff. How things are becoming shot on iPhones and computers. Like TikToks and all those algorithmy outlets. Quality and or high-end production isn't as warranted. Yeah. The numbers are stronger with the authentic iPhone look and things. And or the creation with AI. Does that get in your brain? As you're trying to develop and really spearhead a path for your career as a director, do you just no, it's not there?
I don't think it's like you can't ignore that it's going to do something to us. I don't know what exactly it's going to do.
Yeah.
There's some certain programs that I see that I'm like, oh, boy, that's good. Like, wow, that's really good. Like, and I'm like, I don't know how I would, like, if we were going to shoot something like, I mean, it's got to be that with photo and video too. It's like, well, if you... And I don't know how you regulate that. Honestly, I mean, truly, my answer for that is like, I really don't know.
That's fair.
I really think that you can't ignore it. I mean, it's like for a treatment, even it's great. I'll look,
GPT or whatever.
Yeah, and I'll look at. I shot like a medical thing. It's not really in my wheelhouse, but I shot this like very like stand up against the green and talk about like how like I got this plan. It's like that type of stuff. Bill Pear. And on the agency brief for it, I was like, man, these are like models on here. Like they're exactly who they're wanting. Like who's the people on the photos. And I'm like, oh, but they're all lit the same exact way, and they're in a background, and they're all smiling a certain. It's like, I think these are AI people on the thing, and I'm like, I think they're, and I'm gonna ask them.
Like,
and so on set,
in, like, I can't tell.
Yeah, on set, I also like, are these all like on the photos for the treatment? They're all AI. They're like, oh yeah. I was like, dang, like they didn't use it in a outward facing thing. It was just for the treatment. So like, I think it's all still legal there, but like, I was like, well, it looks so good. It looks great. And so I think you can't get away that it's going to change something about what it is. I don't know.
Do you jump in? Do you try like you did when you were 11 and 12 on the VCR and your switchers? Yeah. Why aren't you in your lab at your house trying to learn? I mean, because a great DP named Blake McClure sends me these clips, and I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm done.
It's incredible.
This is stupidly good.
It's realistic. It's like not just what you think AI would be. It's like, oh, this is like soft focus and kind of realistic.
Kind of cool.
It's really cool. It's really cool.
It's like scary though.
I think you can't be the person not wanting the horse and buggy to go away in favor of the car. It's like, okay, how do we
totally agree with
how do we adopt this? And like, I will say, like, I've dove in a little bit to it, but I'm not as deep into it as I am going to be soon. And I think as far as how it would affect directors, I don't think I know yet. I think there's still, I do think prompt writing is going to be really important. Yeah. So like even more so the act of writing down what's in your head, that's going to be the creative part that is still mineable. Sure. Because
so like mineable. Ooh, I like that.
Like I was in English. I tell a lot of kids all the time of like, if you're going to college, get a writing degree, even if you're going to go and be like a filmmaker.
Sure.
Because you need to know how to write persuasive essays all the time.
Yeah.
You're writing, you need to write creatively and easily and simply enough for people to know what you want to do.
Succinctly, yeah.
And that is what writing a prompt is too. And there's some science behind and some levers to pull on the prompt writing side of things. But I think that's it. Yeah. I think that like getting really good at writing prompts and still being creative on like, okay, even if it's like a photo of motorcycle, like some people on motorcycles with mountains in the background in a desert, like photo behind you. Let's make those mountains purple.
That's crazy.
You know, like let's what if we change those mountains to have
snow caps
on them? Like so like you need to like still be able to speak it. And sometimes it'll fill in the blanks and you're like, that's not right. This. Like, so I still think the role of a director is going to be utilized. And I think it's going to change. Sure. But I think that writing prompts and being able to communicate creative ideas still is going to steer that.
Do you know Justin Clough?
Yeah.
The director?
Oh yeah.
He was a guest and he was very active. He's very active on like and how important writing is for young directors coming up in the game. Yeah. And it sounds exactly what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. I think you have to be. Yeah. Like, and that doesn't just mean writing stories. It can mean like, and I think you do get good training by doing that and knowing how to craft a story and stuff. But I do think how do you get a job? I mean, like, you know, you're telling someone why you would be good for it or why or if you have an idea for it, like, that you know a person who's not creatively bent can understand what you're going after.
That brings up something. This is way off of where we are now, but it brought up something. During the pandemic, when all work was done, I was asked by my wife or my father. They're like, okay, you're a director, you're a photographer, so like break that down and like maybe there's a resume, something you can do while the world fixes itself. Like, okay.
break that down.
Like what is a director? Like, what am I good at? Like, what are my experiences?
Sure.
And I'm like,
yeah. I point camera.
You know what I mean? I felt like all of a sudden, and that spark came up from what you just said. I was like, I can run a team. You know what I mean? There was no real. They all felt like.
You're not like
Boy
a tradesman.
Scout. They all felt like Boy Scout terms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Versus
just
these clear, succinct things that we can do. Do you feel that way about a director?
Yeah.
It's like a hodgepodge of skills, skill sets.
I think it's like, yes, because it is. You're directing. You're using your voice and experience and communicating it to others to lead a team. So it's like, you have a objective in mind, and your computer is running the whole time to look at everything that's happening around you.
You're a chameleon.
To know, yeah, exactly. To know, how am I going to get us there? Okay. Oh, this person ready to go. Lead dog, go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, also, like, yeah, you do. You can point to things that are like, all right, you go do this. So I think team leading, like, man, I'll also say sports and playing team sports in my life had just as much impact as school. For what I do now.
Me too.
Like, think about it. You're working together with a team to do something together, and you sometimes aren't sometimes you're out front, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you don't need to be out front. Sometimes that person's really good at that, so they play shortstop, or they're the midfielder, or whatever. Like, that had a huge impact on me. So, like, I do think leadership skills is a director's medium as well. And that can mean a lot of different things. Like, some directors are more artistic. Like, I think I would fall under the more people-oriented, team-oriented style of directing versus like being an incredibly artistic director. Like, I have some bends like that and I can get there on it. But also, I think I'm more geared in the like team. Like, if directing were to go away from me and I just got a leadership something, I don't even know what that would be, job somewhere, like, I think that would be it. Like,
that's what I've said to my dad. I'm like, Dad, I feel like I'm a 5-star general who has led armies through how many jobs, 200 and some odd battles, and we've won them all. How do I say that?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Exactly. But that's what I think if we're describing the role of that is,
how do you
like,
put that down?
Yeah, and sometimes dad, if I'm telling it to my daughter, it's like sometimes dad is recording voices for an automatic on his iPhone under a blanket, so it doesn't so it's not echoey. Like, and like that's the dumb part of the job too, is like, that's what however means necessary, being creative, being a leader, being, a team member for other people to do their job really well. Like, that's what's going to make all the end product and everyone's life better too. Cause like, we all just kind of are like, we're all in the office together. Like, let's not be assholes to our other office members. Like, let's not be that guy, like, so it's like, I want it to be a good working environment. So like, that's what I want to do a lot. That's not the front foot that I lead on, but it's just what has typically happened, I don't know if that answers that question, but that's how I think of it as far as like it being a broad, what is it?
Do you have a favorite job that you have done for whatever reason, whether it's creative or just the experience, or just you have something that's in your mind that you're like, this is always on the front of my reel, or for whatever?
I think the one that sticks out that was like it was just like a big like turning point as far as like, wow, like, gosh, like, it was just the most exciting job that I got, was getting to direct the Monday Night Football intro, like Are you ready for some football like thing with Hank. And this is why it was so exciting to me. Years ago, when I was setting like future goals and talking about the types of directors who were like, I just got to make a feature. I just got to make a TV show. Like I just got to do that, like fill in the blank. Mine was not that. So I was like, okay, well, what is it? And I years ago said, one day it'd just be fun to like do the intro for Monday Night Football. That was the only goal and milestone that I set. Like it was the only one. Like it wasn't anything else. I was like, that'd be fun. Like that would be awesome. Like I just think that would be so fun to get to do. Just be part of like the history of it that way. And you know, it felt a million miles away because I was doing like acoustic videos with rednecks, you know, like who I love and I'm Southern and a part of. I say that endearingly.
Oh yeah. Of course, we all do.
So I was on a Carrie Underwood video. I was driving to a location, and a production company I worked with and still do called me and was like, "What are you doing this day?" And I'd voiced it to them too. It was also a thing of kind of like, call it manifesting, call it like just putting it out into the ethos of like, hey, one day I want to do this, just so y'all know, like, this is kind of my goal. Like I'm gearing towards that. So, you know, just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
They called me and was like, hey, what are you doing this day? I was like, I don't know. I'm like on this job right now. Like ESPN called and they're doing the next Monday Night Football intro and we want you to direct it. And I was like, I had the like the little kid like freak out moment of like, oh my gosh, like what? Like I can't believe it. And then hitting like saying role playback on set and hearing dun 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 dun, like it was just the trip. It was just like it was so fun. It was one of those things where you walk away for it and you know I know you've had a million of these experiences too, to where you're like, God, this is just so fun.
Yes, we keep
like how do you like I just love getting to do this. Like how did I find you know my way into this? So that project, like, you know, is it the biggest? No. Is it the best one? No. It's like that's the one that feels like kind of the favorite though, as far as like, man, that was like it was such a fun moment.
Well, you
in time.
manifested it and it happened.
Yeah.
So manifesting one more time.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I think still doing commercial. I think I'll always want to do commercial. I do see that. I like the turnover, like we talked about. I like the brain space reset. It's a good industry to be in, stability wise.
Sure, absolutely.
But I think the next thing for me is going back kind of more into the storyteller vibe of like narrative television and film. So like I do think now I'm kind of like dipping toe into that world while still hitting full gas, and it's not just using commercial.
You gotta have multiple irons in the fire.
Yeah. So doing commercial, hopefully scaling that, and then doing television and feature.
Well, you're doing your thing.
Doing it.
I appreciate you taking the time to
of course.
come up here, man. I've been honestly waiting to have you on here, and you are an inspiration to me. Man. I admire you greatly for the moves you have made. I've learned a lot from it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
All right, brother.
Awesome.